Dear students, in this lecture, we'll discuss about OSI model. So, when speaking of the internet, everyone talks about the TCP/IP protocol suite. So, this suite is not only the suite of protocols defined, established in 1947, the International Organization for Standardization. It is a multinational body dedicated to worldwide agreement on international standards. It is seen that almost three-fourths of the countries in the world are represented in the ISO. An ISO standard, it covers all aspects of network communication, is the open systems interconnection, so-called OSI model, which was first introduced in the year 1970s. So this diagram is going to show the OSI model. There are 7 layers. Layer 1 physical, layer 2 data link, layer 3 network, layer 4 transport, layer 5 session, layer 6 presentation, layer 7 application. An open system is a set of protocols that allows any two different systems to communicate regardless of their underlying architecture. So, is it clear? An open system is a set of protocols that allows any two different systems to communicate regardless of their underlying architecture. Then, why they introduced this OSI model? What was its purpose? Is the purpose of the OSI model is to show how to facilitate communication between different systems without requiring changes to the logic of the underlying hardware and software. The OSI model is not a protocol. Then this OSI is a model for understanding and designing a network architecture that is flexible, robust and interoperable. The OSI model was intended to be the basis for the creation of the protocols in the OSI stack. So this OSI model is a layered framework for the design of network systems that allows communication between all types of computer systems. So, as I have already told, it consists of 7 layers. These 7 layers are separate but related layers. So, OSI model consists of 7 separate but related layers, each of which defines a part of the process of moving information across a network. Next, we'll discuss about OSI versus TCP IP. 2 layers, session and presentation, are missing from the TCP IP protocol suite when we compare both the models. These 2 layers were not added to the TCP IP protocol suite after the publication of OSI model. Why? Because the application layer in the suite is usually considered to be the combination of 3 layers in the OSI model. So this figure shows the TCP IP and OSI model. Okay, you can see session and presentation is absent in suite, but the application layer in the suite is usually considered to be the combination of 3 layers. So this application layer is a combination of all these 3 layers. Okay, then there are two reasons which were mentioned for this decision. First, TCP IP has more than one transport layer protocol, and the functionalities of the session layer are available in some of the transport layer protocols. Second is the application layer is not only one piece of software. Many applications can be developed at this layer. So, what Some of the functionalities mentioned in the session and presentation layers are needed for a particular application. They can be included in the development of that piece of software. So now we'll discuss about lack of OSI model success. The OSI model appeared after the TCP/IP protocol. So how many experts were there? Most experts were at first excited and they thought to have that the TCP/IP protocol would be fully replaced by the OSI model. But there were several reasons that made it not to happen. So only three will be described here, which is because as agreed by all experts in the field. First was OSI was completed when TCP/IP was fully in place and a lot of time and money had been spent on the suit. Changing it would cost a lot. The second was some layers in the OSI model were never fully defined. The example is, although the services provided by the presentation and session layers were listed in the document, actual protocols for these two layers were not fully defined, nor they were fully described, and the corresponding software was not fully developed. So the third reason was when OSI was implemented by an organization in a different application, it did not show a high enough level of performance to entice the internet authority to switch from the TCP/IP protocol suite to the OSI model. Okay. So next we'll discuss about data link layer. First we'll see what is an internet. Combination of networks glued together by connecting devices form a internet. Then if a packet has to travel from a host to another host, it needs to pass through these networks. So this is an example. So if a packet is to travel from a host to another host, it needs to pass through these networks. This is the example showing the same scenario, but we are now interested in communication at data link layer. So the communication at data link layer is made up of 5 separate logical connections between the data link layers in the path. So you can see the diagram illustrating the communication at data link layer. You can see the data link layer at alias computer. Here it is the data link layer at alias computer communicates with the data link layer at router R2. Here it is router R2. The data link layer at router R2 communicates with data link layer at router R4 and so on. Finally, the data link layer at router R7 communicates with the data link layer of the Bob's computer, which is the distance. So we can see that only the data link layer is involved at the source or the destination, but two data link layers are involved at each router. What is the reason is that alias and Bob's computers are each connected to a single network, but each router takes input from one network and sends output to another network. Although switches are also involved in the data layer communication, but those have not been shown in the figure. Next we'll discuss about nodes and links. Node to node concept is a communication at the data link layer. Then from one point in the internet to reach another point, then a data unit needs to pass through many networks which could be LANs and WANs. Then these LANs and WANs are connected by routers. There is one thing to refer considered as customary to that the two end hosts and the routers as nodes and the networks in between as links. So this is the figure that is representing a simple representation of links and nodes when the path of data unit is only 6 nodes. You can see nodes 1, nodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nodes. Okay, only 6 nodes. The first node is a source host. The last node is a destination host. This is a destination host. Okay, source host. The other 4 nodes are forerouter. This is one node. This is one more node. This is one more node. This is one more node. So 4 nodes corresponding to 4 routers and 2 nodes corresponding to source host and destination host. Okay, the first, third and fifth links. First, third and fifth link represent the 3 LANs. This is LAN 1, this is one more LAN and this is one more. So 1, 3, 5 and 1, 3 and 5 links represent the 3 LANs. Second and fourth represent the 2 WANs. So this is representing the WAN. This is representing the WAN. Okay. Is it clear? Next we'll discuss about services. The data link layer is located between physical and network layers. So you can see in the diagram the data link layer is located between the network and physical layer. Is located between the physical and network layers is the data link layer. The data link layer, what it does is provides services to the network layer. It receives services from the physical layer. Okay, so we'll discuss the services provided by the data link layer. As already said, node to node concept is the duty scope of data link layer. Then in the internet, when a packet is traveling, the data link layer of a node, that is host or router, is responsible for delivering a datagram to the next node in the path. So due to this, the data link layer of the sending node needs to encapsulate the datagram received from the network in a frame. And the data link layer of the receiving node needs to decapsulate the datagram from the frame. So we can say it in another words, the data link layer of the source host needs only to encapsulate, whereas the data link layer of the destination host needs to decapsulate. But how many intermediate nodes are present in between? They need to perform both encapsulation and decapsulation. Needs to have both encapsulate and then the why there is a need of encapsulation and decapsulation at each intermediate node has to be known. The reason is each link may be using a different protocol with a different frame format. If one of the link and the next are using the same protocol, encapsulation and decapsulation are needed because the link layer addresses are normally different. Then there is an example and I'll explain the same example which has been mentioned here. Assume a person needs to travel from her home to her friend's home in another city. The traveler can use 3 transportation tools. That lady can take a taxi to go to the train station in her own city, then travel on the train from her own city to the city where her friend lives, and finally reach her friend's home using another taxi. So here we have a source node, destination node and 2 intermediate nodes. The traveler needs to go into the taxi at source node, get out of the taxi and get into the train at the first intermediate node, train station in the city where she lives. Get out of the train and get into another taxi at the second intermediate node, train station in the city where her friend lives. And finally get out of the taxi when she arrives at her destination. So encapsulation occurs at the source node and encapsulation and decapsulation occur at the intermediate node. and decapsulation occurs at the destination node. So it is like this. Is it clear? Now we'll take this figure and see how the encapsulation and decapsulation at the data link layer. With this figure we'll see, or this figure shows the encapsulation and decapsulation at the data link layer. For simplicity, it is assumed that there is only one router between the source and the destination. You can see it. There is only one source between the. There is only one router between the source and the destination. The datagram received by the data link layer of the source host is encapsulated in a frame. The frame is logically transported from the source host to the router. The frame is decapsulated at the data link layer of the router and encapsulated at another frame. The new frame is logically transported from the router to the destination host. So here we have shown only two data link layers at the router. The router actually has three data link layers because it is connected to three physical links. Okay. Now with this content of above figure keeping in mind, we can list the services provided by data link layer as shown. First, framing. This framing is the first service that is provided by the data link layer. So the data link layer at each node needs to encapsulate the datagram, that is packet received from the network layer, in a frame before sending it to the next node. The node also needs to decapsulate the datagram from the frame received on the logical channel. So here we have shown only a header for a frame. Okay. Later you can see, and it is observed that different data link layers have different formats for framing. Next we'll see about flow control. This is one more service provided by data link layer. This is like a, or it is related to producer consumer problem. So we need to think about flow control. If the producer produces items that cannot be consumed, accumulation of item occurs. The sending data link layer at the end of a link is a producer of frames. The receiving data link layer at the other end of a link is a consumer. If the rate of produced frame is higher than the rate of consumed frames, frames at the receiving end need to be buffered while waiting to be consumed, that is processed. So we cannot have an unlimited buffer size at the receiving side definitely. There are two choices. The first choice is to let receiving data link layer drop the frames if its buffer is full. The second choice is to let the receiving data link layer send a feedback to the sending data link layer to ask it to stop or slow down. Different data link layer protocols use different strategies for flow control. As this flow control occurs at a transport layer with a higher degree of importance, then we need to talk about transport layer. Next, error control. This is one more service provided by data link layer. At the sending node, at sending side, at data link layer, a frame needs to be changed to bits, transformed to electromagnetic signals, and transmitted through transmission media at sending side. Sending side. Okay, similarly at receiving side, electromagnetic signals are received, transformed to bits, and put together to create a frame. But these electromagnetic signals are susceptible to error. A frame is susceptible to error. The error first needs to be detected. Then after detection, it needs to be either corrected at the receiver node or discarded and retransmitted by the sending node. Since error detection and correction is an issue in every layer, Next, we will discuss about congestion control. This is the last service that is provided by the data link layer. As the frames travel through a link may be congested with frames, which may result in frame loss. but most data link layer protocols do not directly use a congestion control to elevate congestion, although some wide area networks do. So, it is said that in general, congestion control is considered an issue in the network layer or the transport layer because of its end to end nature. So, what all services of data link layer we have studied? Framing, flow control, error control, congestion control. So, I'll stop here. In next lecture, I'll continue. You can go through this. Okay, I'll stop here.